Lena Caldwell sat in the dimly lit office, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The scent of old leather-bound books mixed with the sharp tang of ink and paper pressing against her like an invisible weight. Victoria, her sister, sat poised beside her, an air of quiet expectation resting on her shoulders. Unlike Lena, she wasn't worried, she already knew what was coming. Roger Langley, their family's longtime attorney, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat before unfolding the thick legal document. This is the last will and testament of Jonathan Caldwell. Lena swallowed hard. Her father, stern, distant, a man who lived for control, was gone, and yet his presence still dictated their lives. As Langley's voice droned on, listing the division of assets, Lena barely processed the words until she heard the unmistakable confirmation of what she had feared. The Caldwell estate, including the family home, vehicles, stocks, and jewelry, shall be passed in entirety to Victoria Caldwell. There was a pause, a silence filled with expectation and judgment. Lena's breath hitched in her throat. Everything, every piece of their parents' legacy, handed to Victoria, without question, without consideration, without fairness. Her sister's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile, more a flicker of satisfaction that she hadn't bothered to hide. And for Lena Caldwell. Lena looked up, feeling the slow burn of humiliation creeping up her spine. There is another matter. Langley hesitated. For the first time, his measured professionalism faltered, as if the next sentence carried weight beyond financial value. He reached for a small, weathered envelope and slid it across the desk toward Lena. This was left specifically for you, not property, not wealth, not even the family heirlooms. Just a letter. Lena stared at the envelope. Her name was scrawled across it in a hand she recognized, a handwriting she had not seen in years. Her mother's. Her pulse pounded as she traced the ink with trembling fingers. She could feel Victoria watching her, and for the first time, there was something unreadable in her expression, almost as if she knew. "If you have questions, I suggest you read it," Langley said, his voice softer now. Lena blinked, barely hearing him. The room had disappeared. The will, the office, Victoria's smugness, it all faded into the background. Secrets. That's what she had inherited. And the moment she opened that envelope, her life would never be the same. Lena sat at her kitchen table, the will and accompanying documents spread before her like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't yet begun to solve. The envelope from her mother rested beside them, untouched. She hadn't found the courage to open it, not yet. Her fingers absently traced the embossed crest on the legal papers. It was ridiculous. Really years of memories, grief, and resentment condensed into a handful of signatures. And assets. But as she absent-mindedly flipped through the pages, something strange happened. A smaller slip of paper fluttered to the floor. Lena frowned, reaching for it. It wasn't part of the official documents. It was old, yellowed at the edges, folded neatly as though it had been hidden there deliberately. She unfolded it, eyes scanning the faded ink. "There are things better left hidden, Lena. But if you're reading this, it means the truth is already reaching for you. Be careful. Trust no one, not even those closest to you." The words sent a chill down her spine. Her gaze flickered back to the envelope with her mother's handwriting. Was this part of it? Had her mother left this warning? Or had someone else slipped it in before the documents were delivered? Her pulse quickened. She read the note again. This wasn't just vague caution, it was a direct warning. The phrasing sent a message beyond its words. She was being watched, manipulated, guided toward something unseen. And suddenly, for the first time since walking out of that lawyer's office, Lena knew she had inherited more than just forgotten paperwork. She had inherited a mystery. Lena stood at the threshold of the Caldwell house now, Victoria's house. The estate had always felt intimidating, a sprawling home with corridors that swallowed secrets whole. But today, as she stepped inside, it was different. The air was colder. The familiar sensed the aged wood, the traces of lavender from their mother's favorite perfume, felt like ghosts clinging to the walls. Victoria barely acknowledged her presence, waving her off with a distracted, "Don't touch anything," before vanishing upstairs. Lena had no intention of touching anything, except the one place neither of them ever spoke about, the attic. She moved through the house on instinct, drawn by something unspoken, unremembered. As a child, the attic had terrified her. It was the place where shadows stretched long, where forgotten belongings whispered of stories no one wanted to hear. The pull was stronger now. She climbed the creaking steps, dust swirling in the dim light. The door groaned open, revealing a space frozen in tiny trunks. Furniture draped in white sheets, scattered boxes marked with their mother's handwriting. Lena's pulse quickened. She reached for one of the boxers, the lid stiff as she pried it open. Inside, a collection of letters lay in careful stacks, letters addressed to someone she didn't recognize. Margaret Caldwell's handwriting was unmistakable. Frowning, Lena picked up the top letter. The ink was smudged with age, the words delicate yet urgent. I thought I had left it behind. I thought I had outrun the past. But it's still here, woven into the walls of this house, buried beneath years of silence. And now, I fear my daughters will suffer for it. Her breath hitched. This wasn't just nostalgia. This was warning. A confession left behind like breadcrumbs. A floorboard creaked behind her. Lena whirled around, heart pounding, but there was no one there. Just the quiet house, breathing its secrets into the dust. But she knew, deep in her bones, she wasn't alone. Lena sat in the attic, her legs crossed beneath her as she sifted through the fragile letters. The scent of aged paper mixed with dust, settling into the air like ghosts of the past. Her mother's handwriting danced across each page, delicate yet determined, as if she'd penned them in a rush before regret could settle in. But these weren't letters meant for Lena or Victoria. They were addressed to someone else. She traced the name at the top of each envelope. Eleanor Sinclair. Who was Eleanor Sinclair? A childhood friend, a forgotten relative, or something far more shocking? With careful fingers, Lena unfolded the first letter. Eleanor, I did everything they asked. I built the life they wanted me to have, but I never forgot who I was before. The past doesn't disappear just because we will it to. A cold weight settled in Lena's stomach. This didn't sound like the mother she remembered, the quiet woman who kept her emotions, tucked neatly beneath polite smiles and soft reprimands. This sounded like someone else, someone who had left a life behind. If they ever find out, everything I've built will crumble. And my daughters, they'll suffer for my sins. Lena's grip tightened around the paper. Her mother, Margaret Caldwell, had built a lie. And now Lena was staring at the proof of a life erased. A chill ran down her spine. What was the secret that had forced her mother to bury an entire identity? Something creaked outside the attic door. Lena turned quickly, heart hammering. But the hallway remained empty. Except she knew Victoria was downstairs. And she had heard footsteps right outside the attic door. Someone else was watching her. Someone who didn't want her finding these letters. The address had been scrawled at the bottom of one of the older letters and an afterthought, written with hesitation. 1756 Waverly Street, Apt 3B. It meant nothing to Lena. Yet here she stood, staring up at the cracked brick building, its exterior weathered by time and neglect. The city had grown around it, but this place felt untouched, forgotten. She pushed open the rusting lobby door and climbed the narrow staircase, her heartbeat quickening with each step. 3B. The apartment door was stiff when she turned the handle locked, of course, but as she ran her fingers over the frame, she found something strange. Scratches, faint but deliberate, signs that someone had forced their way in before. Why? A sinking feeling settled in her stomach. Using the spare tools from her bag, she jimmied the lock open, the mechanism clicking softly in the silence. She stepped inside. Dust hung thick in the air, swirling in the morning light filtering through the drawn curtains. The furniture remained in place, a worn armchair, an antique dresser, a wooden table with a single chair pulled out, as if someone had been sitting there. And yet, no one had lived here in years. She walked deeper into the space, running her fingers over the surfaces. A layer of dust coated everything, undisturbed except for a single path in the fluorescent footprints leading to the bookshelf. Lena paused. Slowly, she traced the footprints. They stopped in front of the bookshelf, where a handful of books had been pulled out. She ran her fingers along the spines. The third one shifted slightly. A hiding place. She pulled it out entirely, revealing a small compartment behind it. Inside, nestled among old documents and photographs, was another letter. One addressed not to Eleanor Sinclair, but to Jonathan Caldwell, her father. Lena's breath hitched. Her mother had written to him from here. This place, this apartment, was real. A life existed here. A life before Lena and Victoria. And judging by the footprints, someone else already knew. Lena sat across from Victoria in the grand sitting room of their family's estate, the home that no longer belonged to both of them. The letters lay on the coffee table between them, spread out like evidence in a courtroom. The faded ink and brittle pages spoke of a past neither of them had ever been told about. Victoria barely glanced at them. "You knew," Lena said, her voice tight, controlled. Her sister sighed, reclining against the velvet cushions as if Lena had just brought up something trivial like an old argument from childhood. Something not worth rehashing. "I don't know what you expect me to say," Victoria replied, cool and detached. "I expect the truth," Lena shot back, her fingers pressing into the armrest. "Did you know about this? About her? About the life she had before us?" Victoria's lips pressed together, the faintest crack in her otherwise flawless indifference. She exhaled, slow and measured. "It doesn't change anything." Lena's heart pounded. "It doesn't change anything." She shoved one of the letters toward her sister. "Our mother wasn't just Margaret Caldwell. She had an entirely different life before she was forced to become someone else. There's an apartment filled with her old things, letters, documents. How long have you known?" Victoria finally looked at her, and for the first time, there was something in her gaze, something sharp, defensive, almost warning. "This isn't your fight, Lena," she said, her voice lower now, colder. Lena laughed, but it was hollow, bitter. "Excuse me? She was my mother too. And now I'm supposed to believe that none of this matters? That she just reinvented herself and pretended the past didn't exist?" Victoria picked up one of the letters, holding it between her fingertips like a fragile artifact. "Have you considered that maybe she wanted it that way? That maybe digging up secrets isn't the heroic mission you think it is?" Lena stared at her. Victoria was defensive. Not confused, not shocked defensive. Like someone who had already decided which side of the truth she wanted to be on. And suddenly, Lena knew. Victoria wasn't just aware of their mother's past. She had been protecting it, hiding it. The air between them grew thick, suffocating with unspoken accusations. Lena leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. What exactly are you afraid I'll find? Victoria didn't answer, but her silence spoke louder than words. Today? Hi. Hey Van. Great to see you this morning. How's your day shaping up so far? This is a good storytelling title. My sister got the house, the car, and the rings. I got the secrets. Wadi, you think? That title is packed with intrigue. It immediately sets up a contrast between material wealth and hidden truths, which makes me curious about the story. It suggests family drama, mystery, maybe even betrayal plenty to pull a reader in. If the story leans into suspense, secrets, or emotional depth, this title works well. Would you like help refining it further, or are you happy with how it sounds? The bank statement sat on the table in front of Lena, yellowed with age but still legible. She had found it tucked inside a folder, buried beneath papers in the attic documents no one had looked at in years. The numbers on the page made no sense. $500,000 withdrawn in a single transaction. The date struck her like a punch to the gut, the exact year her mother had disappeared. Her father had never spoken about money, never seemed overly wealthy, but this was different. $500,000, pulled from an account she never even knew existed. Lena ran a finger along the faded ink, unease settling deep into her bones. Where had that money gone? And why had Victoria never mentioned it? She grabbed her phone and dialed her sister, her hands trembling slightly. Victoria answered on the second ring, her voice laced with impatience. What now? Lena didn't bother with small talk. Dad withdrew $500,000 the same year Mom disappeared. Silence, another pause. Lena could hear Victoria's controlled breathing, could sense the wheels turning in her head. If you're smart, Victoria finally said, you'll stop looking. Lena swallowed hard. So you do know something. Her sister didn't deny it. Instead, she said that money wasn't his to take. Lena's blood turned to ice. She gripped the phone tighter. Whose was it? Another pause. Then, softly, almost too soft to hear Victoria said, Mom's. Lena's stomach twisted. Her mother had access to $500,000, and their father had taken it right before she vanished. It wasn't just a disappearance, it was a theft, a cover-up, a betrayal. And now, Lena needed to find out exactly what had happened before it was too late. The cafe was nearly empty, save for a few murmuring patrons lost in their own conversations. Lena sat alone in the back corner, the bank statement folded neatly in her jacket pocket. She had spent days trying to piece together the truth about her mother's disappearance, but every answer led to deeper uncertainty. She was about to leave when a voice cut through the quiet. You look just like her. Lena froze. She turned slowly, her gaze landing on the man standing before her. His hair had thinned, his face lined with time, but his eyes dark, sharp were familiar. Ethan Hartwell. The name felt foreign on her tongue, a memory pulled from childhood stories. A distant friend of her mother's, someone Lena barely remembered. Ethan slid into the chair across from her, exhaling sharply. I heard you've been asking questions. Lena's pulse quickened. She tightened her grip on her coffee cup. If you know something, just tell me. Ethan hesitated. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a faded envelope similar to the ones she had found in the attic. He placed it in front of her. I promised your mother I'd keep her secrets buried, he said. But I also promised to keep you safe. Lena swallowed hard. Safe from what? Ethan leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. You need to stop digging, Lena, before it's too late. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Too late, for what? Ethan sighed. He glanced toward the window, scanning the street like a man who had spent his life watching shadows move. I never said your mother left on her own, he murmured. Lena's breath caught in her throat. There it was. The confirmation she had feared. Her mother hadn't disappeared. She had been forced out, and whoever had done it was still watching. The archives smelled of dust and ink, the air heavy with the weight of forgotten stories. Lena sat in the dim glow of an overhead lamp, flipping through brittle newspaper clippings and handwritten records. She had expected to find financial discrepancies, maybe another clue about her mother's disappearance. Instead, she found something far worse. A death, a cover-up, a name she recognized. The article was dated decades before she was born, long before her mother's supposed disappearance. Victor Caldwell, patriarch of the Caldwell estate, under investigation for alleged ties to missing persons case. Lena's breath hitched. Her grandfather. She scanned the text, heart pounding with every sentence. The details were vague, hints at corruption, whispers of threats made against those who pried too deep. But the most chilling part was the last paragraph where the story simply stopped. There was no follow-up, no conclusion. It had vanished, just like the people connected to it. Her fingers trembled as she sifted through the documents. A missing woman, a fortune mysteriously transferred to another name, a deep rift between powerful families, and then, among the records, a ledger with her father's signature. Jonathan Caldwell had inherited more than just wealth. He had inherited the silence. Suddenly, the massive withdrawal made sense. Her father wasn't just taking her mother's money, he was paying someone off. Lena swallowed hard. This wasn't just a family secret. It was a bloodline built on betrayal, one that had cost lives. And if history had a way of repeating itself, she was in more danger than she ever realized. Lena sat at the dining room table, the weight of the past pressing down on her. Across from her, Victoria sipped her wine, composed as ever, untouched by the storm raging inside Lena's mind. She had spent hours piecing together the truth, the withdrawn money, the scandal buried in their family's history, their mother's disappearance. And now, staring at her sister, the only one who had inherited everything at all, finally made sense. Victoria wasn't just an indifferent heir. She was part of the cover-up. Lena exhaled sharply. How long have you known? Victoria didn't flinch. She placed her glass down gently, tilting her head as if considering how much to reveal. I've always known, she said simply. The admission cut through Lena like ice. She clenched her fists, anger bubbling beneath her skin. So what? You just went along with it. You let them take Mom away. Erase everything. Victoria sighed, running a finger along the rim of her glass. You don't understand, Lena. I wasn't given a choice. Lena narrowed her eyes. You didn't fight for her. You didn't even tell me. Victoria laughed bitterly. What was I supposed to do? Throw myself onto the fire? Lose everything? Trust me. I asked questions once. And do you know what Dad told me? She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You don't want to end up like her. Lena's breath caught. Her father had warned Victoria, had kept her silent, had used the inheritance as leverage. The house, the money, the crit wasn't just favoritism. It was payment, blood money, to keep her quiet. Victoria met her gaze, her expression unreadable. I took what they gave me because I had no other choice. But you're different. You always needed to know the truth. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. And now she did. But at what cost? The study smelled of aged paper and furniture polish. The scent thick as Lena rummaged through the drawers of their father's antique desk. She had spent the last hour combing through files, trying to find anything that explained the missing money. The buried scandals, the silence that had swallowed her mother whole. Then, she found it. Tucked beneath old tax records and faded property deeds was a single, unmailed, envelope sealed, untouched. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message inside was anything but vague. A threat. Her pulse quickened as she unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning the words scrawled in angry, deliberate ink. Jonathan, you think burying the past will protect you? It won't. I want what I'm owed, or everything will come out. The Caldwell name, the estate, the lies you won't be able to silence this forever. Pay up, or the truth goes public. The letter had never been sent. It had sat here, hidden away, as if someone had meant to erase it from existence. But who wrote it? And what were they owed? She turned the envelope over, searching for a name, but there was none. A demand with no sender, a debt with no record, and the chilling part, her father had paid up. $500,000. Gone, disappeared, exactly like her mother. A sharp knock at the door made Lena jump. She turned quickly, stuffing the letter into her pocket just as Victoria entered the room. Her sister's gaze flickered to the desk, to the scattered papers, and then to Lena. You really don't know when to stop, do you? Victoria said, her voice laced with warning. Lena met her stare, heart pounding. She had just uncovered something dangerous, and Victoria knew it. The rain hammered against Lena's windshield, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, the weight of everything she had uncovered pressing down on her. The blackmail letter, the missing money, the truth about her mother's disappearance. Someone had tried to silence her father years ago, and now that she was asking questions, someone wanted to silence her, too. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Unknown number. She swallowed, hesitating before answering. A voice crackled through the line. Low, steady, unfamiliar. You should stop. Lena's breath caught. Who is this? Go home, Lena. Pretend you never found those papers. A chill ran down her spine. The line went dead. She exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel even tighter. Her heart thundered in her chest. She wasn't imagining things. Someone was watching her. Someone new. She pulled into the driveway of her apartment complex, rain soaking her clothes as she rushed up the steps. Her keys trembled in her hand as she unlocked her door end. Then she froze. Her apartment had been searched. Papers were strewn across the floor. The desk drawers hung open, their contents spilled out. Someone had been here, looking for the same secrets she had found. Her gaze darted toward the kitchen counter, where she had left the blackmail letter. It was gone. Her pulse pounded in her ears, and then a creak behind her. Someone was still inside. Lena sat in the dim glow of her apartment, the scattered documents surrounding her like fragments of a shattered past. She had uncovered financial secrets, blackmail, threats, and buried scandals, but none of it answered the most important question. Why had her mother disappeared? The answer came in the form of an old legal document, one she hadn't noticed before. It was a contract. Her hands trembled as she traced the signatures at the bottom. Jonathan Caldwell, Margaret Caldwell, and one other named David Prescott. A name she had seen before, buried deep in the archives of her grandfather's past. A name tied to every suspicious transaction. A name linked to missing people. Her stomach twisted. She skimmed the text, her breath coming faster with every line. The document was a transfer of ownership of assets, property, control. But buried within the dense paragraphs was something far worse. Her mother had signed away her freedom. Lena's pulse pounded in her ears. Her mother hadn't left. She had been forced out. Prescott, whoever he was, had orchestrated it. He had taken everything, not just the money, not just the estate, but her mother's identity, her life, her voice. And her father had let it happen. Lena swallowed hard, the weight of it crushing. The inheritance had been a distraction. The wealth had been a bribe. Victoria had known, but had stayed silent. Her mother had not vanished. She had been erased. And now, Lena was the only one who could bring her back. Lena stood in the grand foyer of the Caldwell estate, her pulse hammering against her ribs. The house had always felt imposing, but tonight it was suffocating a place, heavy with secrets, soaked in betrayal. Victoria was waiting in the sitting room, a glass of wine in hand, perfectly composed as if none of it mattered. Jonathan Caldwell's old business partner, David Prescott, sat across from her. She had called them both here. Tonight, there would be no more lies. Lena strode in, dropping the stack of documents onto the polished mahogany table with a sharp thud. Victoria barely glanced at them. Prescott exhaled, unimpressed. "I'm done playing your game," Lena said, her voice steady despite the fury raging beneath it. "I know the truth." Victoria swirled her wine. "Do you?" Lena leaned forward, palms pressing into the table. "Our mother didn't just disappear, she was erased. And Prescott made sure of it." The older man sighed, shaking his head. "You don't understand how these things work, Lena," she laughed bitterly. "Oh, I do. You stole her money. You forced her out. And my father, he let you do it." Victoria set her glass down carefully, the faintest crack in her indifferent facade. "It wasn't that simple." "No," Lena shot back. "Then tell me, Victoria, why did Dad threaten you? Why did he give you everything? Was that his way of keeping you quiet?" Victoria's jaw tightened. Lena exhaled sharply, pressing forward. "He paid off someone to keep Mom from coming back. Was it Prescott? Or was there someone worse pulling the strings?" Silence. Then Prescott laughed. Low, cold, calculated. "You think your mother was innocent?" he asked, voice like gravel. She knew exactly what she was doing. She ran before things got messy. Lena's stomach twisted. A lie, a carefully crafted lie. "She ran," Lena echoed, her voice quieter now. "Or did someone make sure she had no way back?" Prescott exhaled, standing slowly. "Your father knew how to protect his legacy. Your sister knows it too. Maybe you should stop trying to ruin it." Victoria looked away. Prescott stepped past her, toward the door. But Lena wasn't done. "You think burying the truth will make it disappear?" she called after him. "It won't." Prescott paused, glancing over his shoulder. His gaze was knowing, like he had seen this all play out before. "You'd be surprised," he murmured, before walking out into the night. Lena turned to Victoria, heart pounding, and her sister whispered, "You should have let it go." But it was too late for that. Lena stood at the edge of the Caldwell estate, staring up at the towering home she had once believed held everything: legacy, history, importance. Now, she saw it for what it was, a monument to deception. Victoria sat on the front steps, her expression unreadable. The silence between them was thick, heavy with all the things they had left unsaid. "You're not taking any of it," Victoria finally murmured. Lena exhaled. "No, I never wanted it." Her sister nodded, but there was something else in her gaze. Now, a flicker of something Lena hadn't seen before. Relief. The truth had gutted their family, left wounds that would never fully heal. But Lena had uncovered what mattered. Her mother's story, her father's betrayal, the hidden past that had dictated their futures. She had finally broken the cycle. The estate, the cars, the rings, they were just things. And none of them could compare to the freedom that came with knowing the truth. "I'm leaving," Lena said, more to herself than Victoria. Victoria didn't argue. Instead, she simply asked, "Where will you go?" Lena thought for a moment. Anywhere, everywhere, someplace where the past no longer dictated her future. She turned to her sister, offering the faintest, bittersweet smile, someplace that doesn't feel like a cage. And with that, Lena stepped away from the life she had spent so long trying to understand, choosing, for the first time, to live beyond it.